Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending some time with us today. Hopefully you're having a great radio days. My name's Joe D'Angelo. I'm with Xperi, and this is a sponsored session where we're going to take a little bit of a look back in the history of radio over the last 25 years. And when I say little, I mean very little, because then we're going to dive right into a conversation with these experts here about the future of radio and what's on the horizon that's going to keep this industry thriving. But before we get into that, before we do the introductions, I just wanted to give you my perspective on a couple interesting statistics that really resonate with me and keep me focused in what I'm doing kind of every day. Three simple numbers: 12, 900, 41.5. These represent the 12 largest global, or in the case of iHeart, a regional digital audio platform that are coming after your listeners every day. They have over 900 million registered users. And what's really frightening is if you look at the money that they generate just from their audio services, it's close to $42 billion. And when you compare that $42 billion against the global broadcast radio revenue, both commercial and public service, that's about 97% of the global radio revenue. So when you look at the landscape you're trying to reach your audiences in, home, mobile, and car, you have to appreciate the depth of wealth that those vertically integrated companies have and are deploying to get your listeners to tune in and listen to their products. It's really, really a daunting task, and I think we all have to keep that as a foundational understanding of the competitive environment you're in right now. So, the panel, we got together, we talked about what do we believe the future of radio is going to be dependent on. And we boiled it down to these four topics: content and distribution strategies. How are you investing in producing content? How are you getting it in the hands of your audience or the ears of your audience? Connectivity, with a particular focus on the connected car. As you probably heard in the last panel, this space is moving rapidly. It's a highly competitive space, tons of opportunity, but the opportunity is there if you move quickly and move with precision. Data and ad tech. Ad tech is becoming the way people transact in the audio business. There are billions of dollars moving through these ad tech stacks around the world, but there's a real challenge of how broadcast radio can participate in those platforms. And then if we have time, and I'm not sure we will, there's a lot to discuss here, we'll touch on AI. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tobias to introduce himself, and then we'll dig into the conversation.
Yeah, my name is Tobias. As some might hear on my accent, I'm Danish. Worked in the company in Denmark for many years, about 20 years as a content lead, and then as CEO for Jim, who sits down there. Then since September, I moved to London to join the central digital team, work with Keela and the others, to build our own and operated digital products, look after digital content across countries, and also distribution and partnerships.
Great, thanks. Next we have Christian.
Yes, I'm Christian. I work for RTL. As you might know, RTL is quite a big entertainment company, especially in Germany, with significant footprints also in France and other areas. I oversee digital audio, which includes radio and associated tech, but also podcast, audiobooks and music, so everything related to audio, trying to make the biggest sense of it. And the challenge and maybe the opportunity with having audio at RTL is also to use RTL's strength in terms of being a big media company, and at the same time to use the unique advantages of audio and its special interests in terms of distribution and in terms of monetization. And happy to discuss this with you.
Great, thank you. And Actually, the youngest company on the panel is represented by Jason Bryan. I think you're coming up on your 25-year anniversary.
Yeah,
So
we founded Nation 25 years ago next year, so very pertinent to the conversation, Joe. Prior to that, I launched TalkSport in the UK and was in the development team at Virgin Radio for a number of years. But yeah, 25 years taken Nation. We are now the UK's largest commercial radio station group, not owned by a billionaire. So we've got a range of, a good number of stations, regional, national, which are locally focused, and then we've got a suite of digital decades and genre stations, which are carried on the Nation player.
So, not owned by a billionaire yet,
I'm an aspirant billionaire, of course, yeah.
So let's dive right into the first topic here on content curation, production, and distribution. And I thought it would be good to use your digital apps as a foundation for that discussion, because it's where you can put content at any time and get it directly in the hands of your audience with no intermediaries, nothing to do to interrupt your broadcast business. So why don't we dig into this? Jason, why don't you start? How are you leveraging Nation Player?
So Nation Player, we really geared up 12 months ago. We had our own in-house app, which had our own suite of stations, and we thought, well, we've got to try and develop that and be sort of not put ourselves at risk of third-party owners, and we wanted a platform that we could dominate and that we could work with and cooperate with third-party broadcasters. So we opened that up. We've now got nearly 100 services as well as our own services on there. And we see this very much, it's best-in-class app provided by Xperi, and our listeners say, you know, it's been a game changer for them. So it's been a fantastic platform as we've developed, as we've wanted to provide additional regional, local services, and also our new national services. And it just gives them a seamless offer in the car, works brilliantly, obviously with that Android and with Apple. Fantastic experience in car. And as I said, we've opened it up to third-party operators. And I think we really are in the foothills of Nation Player. We're not even a year old yet. But I see that a collaboration, a cooperative with other broadcasters. Obviously, we're aware in the UK it's a very strange market. It's great to see so many countries at Radio Days where you've still got lots of different owners in the markets. In the UK, it's been condensed to 2 commercial owners. So it's there's a very, very tight space for independents to work with. And they've definitely welcomed the ability to work with us, and I can see that leading to future revenue opportunities, data sharing opportunities, and so on as we go forward.
Yeah, this has been a particularly exciting product and partnership for Xperi, because it's one where we are economically joined at the hip. We share in the revenue, so we've enabled this platform. We've done all the development, and through this partnership, we weren't paid for this. You know, this is basically a free app, and we're in this together. We're going to monetize this platform together, which is, I think, a template for a lot of what you're going to see in technology in the future. So why don't we switch to Tobias now and go for the biggest, baddest commercial radio group in Europe and see how you're leveraging your Rayo platform.
As you saw on the last slide, we got radio stations in 9 markets, and that's very much built on acquisitions. So we are in different places in the different countries. In the Nordics, we had an aggregator provided by AIM called Radio Play for many years. Mm-hmm. In the UK, we had branded apps also provided by AIM until we developed Rayo as the first aggregator platform in the UK market, built in-house and launched last year. And I think what we share across all 9 countries is the importance and the strength of this wider content offering. So obviously a lot of the listening, or the main part of the listening, is driven by the main brands being distributed, whether that's on FM DAB or via IP. But I think IP allowed us to widen the content offering, which I think is extremely important for the business. My good colleague Garrett gave a good session yesterday about niche formats and the value of niche formats, because I think in the competition in share of ear that we are facing, I think it's important for us to leverage the opportunities with a wider content offering, including more IP stations and obviously also a podcast.
Great. Christian, RTL.
Yeah, our biggest goal is to control our content as much as possible. So that's the number one priority. And in most cases, this means that we're trying to get the usage within our own ecosystem. That's the number one priority, which is sometimes dedicated radio apps, as you can see here. This is the one from RTL Radio. But it can also be kind of an internal aggregator with the rest of RTL's offering, and this is quite a unique position we have in Germany, since we launched RTL Plus a couple of years ago, which is the streaming service of RTL in Germany, combining video, TV, but also audio. So this is a bundle offering for all content that comes from RTL, and it includes a significant amount of audio, which is podcasts, but also radio, audiobooks and music, and this allows us to combine all these contents and also to see and analyze cross-listening and cross-usage across different audiences. So we are able to detect a certain target group, which might be heavy users of a TV show, and seeing how this group converts into audio usage, which is quite a unique proposition in terms of data, and we are only able to do this because we have this huge amount of different contents. And at the same time, when we don't have access to our own ecosystem, we try to partner and to partner up with other distribution platforms. And here's also the idea to maintain as much control as possible, which is usually done through contracts. So we're trying to cover the full range of audio distribution with a clear priority, our own ecosystem first, and then trying to partner up with as many people and platforms as possible.
That's a great segue, because one of the questions I have, and I've seen this a lot with US broadcasters, in the last 25 years, there was a rush to be on every digital platform you could. And there's a cost to that, right? There's focus, attention, there's infrastructure. And we've seen a lot of the big broadcasters now basically do audits of all those platforms and really look at what value is it delivering. Is it just the halo effect of being on all these platforms, or is it really unlocking audience and revenue? How do you guys make the decisions now about what third-party platforms like smart speakers or even aggregator apps that you're going to partner with? What's the thinking behind that? And anyone who wants to go first, please.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
I can go first, yeah. I mean, the obvious thing is, of course, that we value platforms and distribution opportunities by the significance of it. So the bigger the distribution or the potential distribution is, the more important it is. And honestly, it's not only about allocating resources on certain platforms, it's also about how we can manage all these platforms efficiently. Yeah. So sometimes it's a bit of a dilemma saying, we focus only on platform X, not on X. So that was a random number, platform A instead of platform B. And we do this with social media, for instance. So we really focus all of our attention on Instagram and TikTok, because they convert quite effectively and kind of ignoring other platforms. With audio distribution, we try to ignore as least platforms and solution partners as possible, while maintaining a technical structure that allows us to control and manage it. And we put a lot of resources, especially last year, in managing all these different distribution platforms by streaming services, centralized metadata, but also in terms of all the corresponding ad tech. And we think, from a technology point of view, that's the biggest thing you have to achieve in terms of being able to control your content on endless amounts of distribution platforms. Yeah. So the focus is really this management lever in terms of technology.
So how does Bauer deal with that, given your geographic breadth?
Again, there's still different solutions in the different countries.
Yeah.
But I think overall we realize that we are a commercial company, and one of the USPs for radio and audio is the wide reach. So we need to be where the audience is, and obviously enabling partnerships, tech opportunities is extremely important. As Christian is saying, obviously we got a distribution priority list, and of course we prioritize owned and operated above all other platforms. But we see the importance of being where the audience is, whether that being Radio Player or Xperi, and working with the tech companies as well.
Yeah.
I think if you look at UK, I think now it's about 70 to 80% of IP listening being on smart speakers driven by Amazon.
Wow.
Which saw a significant growth during COVID, because one of the positive opportunities for radio is that radio is the most used feature on a smart speaker. And now more than half of UK households have a smart speaker. So I think that highlights the importance for us as an industry, one, to work together to secure distribution in cars, but also to enable all the opportunities that we see also in partnerships.
Yeah. Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, we've definitely grasped streaming as the primary opportunity. So it enables us to, fast test channels, whether they sink or swim, we can change them. So, we track that data relentlessly. We really have a look at it in significant detail. And, as an aside, it's clearly where the money and the revenue is shifting as well. So we're probably about 10% of our revenues now are in streaming and digital, and that's only going to go one way. So, that for us is the primary one. That's why we put so much effort into the Nation Player. Aside from that, I still think actually there's a big role for FM as long as it's cost effective. So I look at the cost really, the cost per listener, the way that in terms of the coverage area, I think some of the smaller relay FMs in the UK, we're starting to turn those off. I'm looking at markets where we've got perhaps a 25,000, 30,000 population served by one FM, and it's just not economic. But we are looking at the big FMs, we're still keeping those, and DAB, which clearly in the UK now represents a good portion of listening. We look at that, but it's still relatively expensive. We tend to go on the bigger multiplexes, which are owned by the dominant transmission providers, such as Arqiva. And those aren't cheap. So we've just, for example, rolled out into Nation Radio South, has just rolled out into the adjacent county of Sussex. But as an aside, the interesting thing, we look very carefully, again, at the data. So the streaming data for that, when I look at that business decision to go into Sussex, I can see from our streaming partner where listeners are, and there was already a significant overlap for Nation Radio South on the Sussex coast. So it was obviously a calculated roll of the dice and a bet that we can grow that audience. But I already knew there was quite a significant audience listening to that station already. So in most of the local markets, we try and be on at least two platforms, including streaming. So it'd be streaming and DAB, streaming and FM potentially, and in some it will be all three. But streaming's the way to go. And I think any smaller operators in the room here, and if you're thinking about expanding your business, it's just got to be the way that you go. To fast test channels, expand your brands. As Gary was talking about yesterday, some of those niche stroke sub brands are definitely a significant opportunity to grow and enhance your audiences.
Awesome. So let's use that and transition into the connected car. Because connected car, you're now in this hybrid environment where you can bring your digital solution into the dash, or you can start to add value around your broadcast services, or you can do both. You can work with us, you can work with Radio Player. I think we have combined close to 30 OEMs that have implemented some variant of hybrid radio in the last 5 years, which I think is, fantastic. The user experience, this is just a display of our solution called DTS AutoStage. It's a 3-screen solution, center stack, passenger, driver, instrument cluster, and it basically is a platform that allows broadcasters to enhance their presentation and engagement in the dashboard of our car partners. Our system is free for broadcasters. There's no cost to be on the platform. And we are global. We're launched in 145 countries and have about 45,000 radio stations, including the ones represented here on the panel. So we'll pause here for a minute because one of the driving motivators for us to get into this space and offer this solution to broadcasters was our 20-year history of building HD radio in the US and looking at how the incremental improvements that digital broadcasting could bring to the user experience in terms of discovery, choice, engagement. And we said, that's great, but this foundation that we're building on in the car, it's changing dramatically. And these new entrants were coming in. You had connectivity modules that were mandated for safety and security. And so we started to see this convergence of technology as well as opportunity and then threats. So we went ahead and built this purposely to support broadcast radio. What has your experience been in general in the hybrid radio space? I know you're all also working with Radio Player. I mean, has this had a material impact in your audience engagement, or are you just seeing it sustaining your in-car audience? Like, has it been worth the trip?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, for sure. You know, particularly in new cars and when we're talking to commercial partners, I think they expect to see, it looks great, so I think there is an expectation that, you know, the brands they advertise on, they're expecting that. So that's for the commercial partners. And then for listeners, you've just got to make it as easy as possible for them to find your brands. Make it navigable, make sure that, you know, it makes sense on the dashboard. So for us, it's an absolutely central part of our audience offer. And, you know, we promote Nation Player morning, noon, and night, and we know from the feedback that you know, people are using it, people are downloading it, people are accessing it, and also it's a great thing for in terms of marketing because it's an easy promotion thing. And obviously, all of our companies have got our different apps that we promote and we market, and it's a very effective way to keep people in your universe, isn't it?
Have any of you seen a challenge with launching new DAB formats and getting them in front of drivers, particularly? Because in the States, one of the huge benefits of this system to domestic broadcasters in the US is exposure of new content, new formats. You know, you're on an equal playing field. These brands are new. They're not the legacy brands people are used to. Have any of you experimented with that in the DAB space and seen any impact because of hybrid radio?
That's a good question. We've seen quite a lot of growth on its own through DAB Plus in Germany because it's kind of new, although it's been around for decades now. But national DAB Plus is quite new and kind of naturally brings listening to new offerings. So, yeah. But this is a bit fading out because more and more regional DAB Plus stations have started, and it's now really crowded. Yeah. And it's probably, since we're talking also about the future, one of our biggest threats and biggest challenges is exploration. How can we make people aware of new content, both in terms of radio, but also in terms of podcast, while we have this increasing amount of different offerings. And that's honestly a challenge that at least we haven't solved yet, but it's on top of our list, because if we only can maintain listening and hopefully transform a lot of our audiences from analog to the digital world, it's not enough. We really have to launch new contents as well, and having successful launches means people are aware of this new content, and this is a big challenge. And this is also why we're teaming up with platforms and aggregators to achieve this. This is the #1 goal with our partnerships.
Tobias, how do you guys manage that across all your territories? Is it all at the country level?
Yeah, it is, obviously. I don't think we've seen any tangible results so far, but as I keep saying, we see this as an important pillar in the future distribution strategy. So it's on top of our list, beside owned and operated products, to have to be present in hybrid radios.
Great.
And it's also a little bit of a defense war, yeah, because it's the number one use case still in cars is radio, and we want to defend this. This is our home, our turf, and we will try to defend it as long as possible.
Yeah, it's been interesting. As an observer, I've been coming to radio days, I don't know, for probably 10 or 15 years, and seeing the balance shift from broadcast is good, IP is a threat. Now the scales may be slightly balanced. We still have our issues in the US with the cost for content. So IP streaming is still, orders of magnitude more expensive in the US, not from a bandwidth perspective or operations, but the license fees. You guys in Europe are generally not burdened with that. You kind of have a level playing field and maybe a bit agnostic.
It's because we already pay, which they don't in US, I think.
Correct. Yeah, every Congress, Music Fairness Act gets reintroduced, and it's a battle, and I'm going to stay silent on it. I'm a technologist in this space, but I have a bias towards the creators, so I'll leave it at that. So these platforms are connected. I asked you a leading question about, are they making a difference? And that leads us into this second to last topic here on data and analytics. Because the car has always been a bit of a blind spot. And I'm sure as you look at the data you get from your digital platforms now versus ratings data, it's apples and oranges. And while ratings data is useful for your currency, for the lifeblood of your business, and that's how you sell your audience, and this is a question, not a statement, does it fall short in giving you in-depth analysis that you really could leverage to make operational and programming decisions? And are you seeing that on the digital side now?
So also a good question. Of course we need both. We need real-time data, real-time feedback, and at the same time we need demographic data, which is also a trusted currency, because we don't do ratings for our own. I mean, it's eventually for the market. It's also quite challenging at some point to value each of the analytics feedbacks we get. And we usually use the kind of direct feedback more for the technical improvement of stuff, while we use the ratings data obviously for sales. So that's usually the distinction. What we're trying to add now, and this is both a big technical challenge and also probably one of the biggest opportunity we're seeing, is to have also contextual information to these technical measurement and analytics, so that we now know that a certain listener is listening in a certain environment, and we have some additional information based on location or on the devices he or she is using, or we get some additional information from the content, which is also contextual, and we can use this in real time or later on to analyze or even to expand the content or to additional sales. So this is probably the biggest opportunity with enhanced analytics, that we have more real-time data that is not only quantitative data but also qualitative data.
Yeah, and it's the lifeblood now of these digital exchanges, programmatic. If you don't have data, you're not going to be able to transact. Any other comments on the data?
No, I can just echo the importance of data and the value of data also when it comes to content planning. Obviously, real life data for what people actually are using and how they move inside the ecosystem is extremely important, and something we didn't have in the past. So definitely one of the benefits of the digital world of audio. Jason. And also for advertisers, sorry.
No. I mean, Radar, the currency in the UK, is very much a sort of a rear view mirror. As I see it, it's a backward looking, you need it obviously for trading. But the thing I look at all the time is the streaming data, where people are listening, the platform stuff, as Christian was talking about. And actually, you know, we use it in our business strategy, for example. So we just put Nation 80s, one of our genres, one of our decade stations, into a national report rather than just a London report. It's in London on DAB and a couple of other regions. You know, the safe bet was to go for a London survey, which would have been, I think it's about 12 million population. But we went for the UK survey, which was 67 million, purely because I could see on a map where people are listening across the UK. And I know that we're strong in the Northwest, in Yorkshire, in Central Scotland, across Wales, and other regions. And we launched with over 500,000 listeners. You know, that would have been lost to us if I wasn't looking at and using the data.
Yeah, that's great. So 2 years ago, Xperi launched our connected car analytics platform. And at that time, I don't remember exactly, we probably had 2 million cars on the road. Now we've got 10 million. And what you're seeing as a broadcaster using this system is a significant increase in the audience and the time spent with the platform. So what we're starting to uncover, and this is courtesy of RTL, we're showing one of their stations here. What you see in our platform in this case is the size of your audience relative to all the other radio listening that's going on in that market. So you can see on a daily basis how your station's performing. You can see how long your sessions are, how long the in-car listener is tuned into your station, and you can see exactly the total number of sessions. This is just the starting point. We're going to have another version of this data, even more granular, even more flexible, later this year that we believe will be able to feed into your attribution systems and really give you, for the first time, actionable data out of the car. This is another view that we present to broadcasters where on any given day, they can look and watch their audience flow. The orange line in the forefront is for the day selected, in this case, March 7th. The gray line in the back is every Friday in the system. And this is very interesting, especially if you're doing special events, you're doing some great morning show stunt, and you want to see how the audience reacts to that. You can visualize this 24 hours after the event. We also, and Jason, thanks for that leading insight there on where people are listening. We provide a heat map to all the broadcasters that show you exactly where your listeners are and how they're listening. So if you happen to have a multi-transmitter network, you can select any one of those transmitters, repeaters, your DAB muxes, whatever it is, and see exactly where your audience is listening. And finally, we tell you what they're listening to as well. This is our top charts list, and this represents a ranking of the most listened to songs. So it's not necessarily the songs you played the most, it's the ones that are listened to the most in the car. And so this complete view of your audience tells you basically where, when, and what they're listening to. And this is all available, again, at no cost to broadcasters. And I think this is the first step towards getting broadcast radio in the car integrated with programmatic ad platforms. It's a pretty provocative statement because it assumes a level of targeting and identification that we have on digital platforms, pure IP platforms, sorry, and will obviously have impact on GDPR and CCPA compliance. But I think this is really one of the more powerful opportunities that the connected car is bringing to certainly commercial broadcasters. So I'm going to jump. We got 4 minutes left, and we got to cover AI. And the question for you guys, is it friend or foe? And are you using it? And if so, how? What are you willing to share? Because it's a hot topic. Who wants to go first?
We see it as a friend. We believe it will create many good opportunities across the ecosystem, whether that being on the production side or on the on the ad tech, ad server side as well.
Are you using it for generating content?
It's, I would say we use it some. It's
Some.
still early days, but
Yeah.
obviously a big priority for us.
Yeah, yeah. I saw a session just prior to this where someone was talking about developing episodic shows, TV, like voice-driven serial shows, and they use AI to generate the first draft of the script, and then they hand it to a human who refines it, localizes it. Is there anything like that going on? Are you guys prompting your morning show with AI-generated topics? Or?
No, I'd say we use it for general research, programming stuff. We're trying to get in some of the music stuff that's out there. So info, research, data that's out in the market is how we use that. But it's still early days as far as I see in terms of, show content. I think ad tech is a different matter. I think that is starting to come across, and I can see, commercial sales teams being equipped with stuff. There was a good session I saw earlier on about, how that's moving on at pace and just making multi-language ads just so easy, frankly, to do and taking that cost out. But I think in real traditional programming, I still think humans win.
Yeah. Christian?
Yeah, I don't want to destroy too much of radio's magic, but sometimes we use it also for drafting and producing content. And especially Gen AI like ChatGPT is surprisingly funny. And we sometimes match the, let's say, humor or the gags or the writing of ChatGPT with authors and writers, and sometimes it's a tie and sometimes it's better. So it's hard to lose against the machine, but sometimes this is the case. But we see the bigger opportunities through AI, especially in the edtech field.
Yeah.
And we think it's a bit unsexy, of course, to talk about metadata, but to use AI in order to ingest additional metadata, especially contextual data, is the big game changer and the big opportunity we see. So that the player, the technical environment, and also the ad server knows what the content that is currently broadcast is about, and then translate into targets, and the ad server is probably the biggest, opportunity we see.
So we have 1 minute left. Are there any questions from the room? Okay. I guess I will dismiss you all early for lunch, and please help me to thank our speakers today.